So we think the race to autonomous driving is a really long run. It's a marathon. So at the end of the day, the core competence is going to be the driving capabilities, and the key of which is really technology. The investment is just the first step towards a strong coalition in technology, in polishing the technology and really building a capable driver. I think that's above all the most important goal. But of course, we are open to future possibilities. Right now, we are still dedicated to building the micro-circulation robobuses. But in the future, I can totally imagine at some point in the future when the timing is right, we will be working with our investors and partners to look into other scenarios, or maybe even exploring scenarios that weren't possible before. Actually, we're both expanding our robobus fleets to more cities and to more different kind of applications like ride hailing. We're also working on assisted driving technologies on larger vehicle models. But also at the same time, we're actually experimenting with a new vehicle form with automakers, which has to do with both robobus and robotaxi. So in our view, the future of both fields will be a form of vehicle that is smaller than robobuses today, but still more spacious than robotaxis. And that's thanks to the fact that there's no need to be a driver and the infrastructure around the driver. Also, this new vehicle will be operated as a hybrid between robotaxis and robobuses. It's going to serve the purpose of city bus services, but when the demand is not high, it also can fulfill the ride-hailing services. So we're actually experimenting with a much smaller vehicle right now, this long-draw space, and this is towards the vision that we have about these two fields. That's basically what the behavior prediction is trying to do, and it's really hard, of course. Behavior prediction is basically trying to model the world, the agents, the other vehicles, the other people, pedestrians, bicycles in the world, and predict how they are going to behave. With enough road testing data, with enough miles logged, we do have the observation of how the world evolves over time in different situations. And then basically you can treat the behavior prediction problem as basically a data fitting or machine learning problem. And deep learning is really good at doing that. But that's like the basic view of behavior prediction. That's far from enough in terms of our needs in a safe autonomous driving system. The difficulty with that is behavior prediction, the future is not really always certain, right? If you imagine a pedestrian standing at the side of the road and it's moving, they're moving towards the middle of the road, you know, as a human driver, you know you probably have to react to it and brake to let the pedestrian pass first. But there's uncertainties in their actions. They may stop in the middle of the road. They may accelerate and speed through the road and reach the other side quickly. So your reactions need to change accordingly. Our view is that these different sensors, what we call different modalities, are very complementary to each other, and there's just no reason to not use them at this stage of the autonomous vehicle development. We know that right now the most commonly used sensors are cameras, lidars, and millimeter wave radars. The lidars are really good at measuring distance, so you can get lidar points that specifically accurately pinpoint an object in a 3D space. You know how far they are from us. That's what cameras can't do. With millimeter wave radars, you get speed measurement as well, but lower resolution, so it's sometimes a little difficult to obtain images with radars. You can sort of do this with lidars, but with cameras, the resolution is going to be very, very high. So a lot of the advantages of cameras come from the high resolution. you can recognize textures, you can recognize small objects like traffic cones, like far away pedestrians. That's something you cannot do with LiDARs. But both with LiDARs and cameras, you will get a lot of impact in adverse weathers like rains and snows and the fogs. That's where radars really shine. So all of these different sensors have their strengths and weaknesses, and none of them by itself is going to be enough for all the scenarios. That's our thoughts on it. Basically, we have to use all of them together in order to build a really safe vehicle. I think most of our founders are feeling quite a lot of cultural differences between the two countries and two workforces, basically. We're trying actually to bring some of the good traditions we think that we have seen in the Bay Area to here. One of the things that Waymo has done really well that we are trying to replicate here is the way that engineers try to solve, not just try to solve the problems, but try very hard to solve the problems in the right way. So, for example, I think if you think about the computation of the headway in vehicle following, there's this headway distance that you want to find. If an engineer is tasked with computing this optimal headway distance, how would the engineer proceed? They will probably, an average engineer will probably say, let's pull a few driving logs and watch what human drivers have been doing, right? Measure the distances and maybe do some average. A better engineer would realize that it depends on the driving speed, right? It would depend on the circumstances, the width of the road, but most importantly, the speed of the two vehicles. But that's not good enough still. If we have a really good engineer who's trying to always go one step further and think about the reason why this headway distance is depending on the speed, and they will think about, like, when we are driving the car ourselves, what's the reason why we will pick a different headway distance at different speeds. That's a really important thing that we would value. I think a lot of these tech giants are doing a lot of field testing, public road testing on their fleets. The number of miles they logged are in the tens of thousands of miles, tenth of millions of miles, actually. So with that kind of number of miles and with fleets of hundreds of vehicles, you always have the possibility of running into dangerous situations. You will have a lot of risk of actually having accidents, sometimes even involving injuries. So what these tech giants are putting a lot of efforts in, what we think a lot of companies over here in China are right now realizing, is that it's really important to put in place a safety procedure to robustly test your autonomous vehicle in different stages. When a new software release or a new hardware configuration untested before come into production, you don't put them in on the public road into the fleet testing directly, right? You have to go through various carefully designed stages. One stage with higher exposure, but less risk than the previous one. And with this ladder, you can gradually push your untested software and hardware and validate them. That's the way. That's the right way to do the testing without really creating a safety hazard on the road.